What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph, and this is be the top 10 games by Bruno Cathala.
Right.
And we love us some, we call them Brookles and Gatukles.
Brooks and Katooks.
Brook and Kooky.
Bruno Cathala.
There's a lot of them.
Knows how to make a game.
Knows how to make a game. That perfect, like, family weight plus,
Yes.
you know? Like, none of the games are super, super heavy.
Yeah, this was, I was
But
talking
they're
about
not
this.
gateway either,
Bruno
yeah.
Cathala really helped us like get into the hobby and really helped usher us in with those weight of games that are so just nice.
Yeah,
you know, there's something
they're
to
great.
think about if you're an experienced gamer. There's something it's easy to get into if you're a new gamer. And so Bruno Cathala's had a very important role in
Yeah,
our
one of our favorite
development as board
designers.
gamers.
Has been for a long time.
So we're going to celebrate a terrifically French person today.
That's right.
That is Bruno Cathala. And here's our top 10 games of Bruno's. So number 10 from us is Jamaica. This is a racing game that actually just got redone, which I'm really excited to try the new version to see what's been kind of spruced up. But even in the old version of Jamaica, it's a really fun racing game where you're all different ships and you're trying to do one loop around, you guessed it, Iowa. That's landlocked. You're going around Jamaica, people, and you are trying to manage your provisions and your money, depending on if you stop in port or if you're kind of out at sea, you need to kind of manage those resources. You can get gunpowder and battle people and try to send them back behind you. There's all this kind of fun pirate theming, but ultimately the goal is to race around Jamaica and win the race. That's kind of your main path to victory. So there's a lot of really fun, interesting things in this game. It's got a great light, as you expect, colorful theme, and really kind of interesting action selection with these cards that have kind of two halves. And what you allocate where will dictate kind of how you go. So it's almost kind of like, I feel like programming a little bit. It's really interesting, it's fun, especially if you get a big group together to all play. That is Jamaica, our number 10.
Our number 9 is a game called Naga Raja. This is a game that came out in Gen Con 2019, I believe, in the before times, as we say, and kind of went whoosh under the radar and went away. And that's a real bummer because this is a really great Bruno Cathala game with Vincent Dutrait art. It's really, really pretty too. And it's a two-player only game. Two-player only, Bruno Cathala, Vincent Dutrait, a brew trait, as we call it, Bruno Cathala and Vincent Dutrait. It's great. Why is anybody playing this game? It's wonderful. This is a two-player only game where you have your own little temple. You're kind of like Indiana Jones exploring a temple, trying to find some treasure, that kind of stuff. And you are putting tiles out onto your board. You have a little, like, I believe 3x3 grid, and you have treasure on the outskirts of your board, but all your treasure is face down, and you're gonna be hopefully winning these tiles, and the tiles basically are square tiles that are gonna have different paths on them. And if you make a path from your entrance, which is on the side of the board that's near you, if you can make a path from your entrance to one of the treasures, you then get to flip it over, and you're trying to get to 25 points. Whoever gets to 25 points immediately wins, just bam, game's over. And it's really, really fun because you have your cards, and your cards give you these sticks. They're essentially D4s. These kind of, I think they're called Naga sticks. They're essentially this four-sided little sticks, and you roll them, and you basically are trying to get a bunch of different pips on them. Whoever has the most pips will win that tile. But then you can also get these kind of squiggly snakes on there, and if you get those, you then get to play your cards for their abilities. All your cards are dual use. The very top tells you if you play that card for the sticks, you get to roll a certain amount of sticks based off whatever card you play, but then you can't use it for its bottom abilities. But then you get to use the squiggle parts to play your cards. So you have to also choose, oh, do I want to use this card to roll more to try and win this tile, or do I want to save these cards to use their abilities? And the abilities do a whole bunch of different stuff. It might allow you to move tiles around so that you can reveal other treasures because the treasures have all different values on them. You can use it to like peek at treasures or maybe move treasures around. You're like, oh, this one's only 2. I'm gonna move it over here. I'm hopefully gonna get a better one over here. And it's really, really cool. It just works really well. And there's some cursed treasures there too that are worth 6, which is worth a ton. The problem is if you ever reveal all 3 of your cursed treasures, you immediately lose. So it's kind of that if you reveal 2, you're like, oh gosh, where's that 3rd one? Because if you accidentally reveal it, immediately over. It's a really good game that I feel like, again, went completely under the radar. And check it out if you see it, because we really, really like it. And it's a brew trait. Brew trait, come on. Our
So number 8 is Queenz, to be or not to be. Get it? In this game, you are going around drafting orchids and stuff from these columns or rows based on this beekeeper that's kind of moving around the central board. Or you can then, once you have some orchids, fill a field with them, which kind of takes these polyomino tiles. So you're sort of placing on polyomino tiles, filling it with orchids. You want to get certain color orchids next to each other. There's little honey, like beekeeper houses, honey bee houses, what do they call it? Beehives, you know. And you are kind of doing this fun puzzle that works really interestingly with getting those orchids down and placing them. You kind of want to keep increasing the size of a group to be able to score it. Again, you can't score if you don't increase the size of something. So you need to kind of lay out things interestingly and draft orchids first, but then those polyomino shapes might make for things to be kind of a little bit funky as you're trying to build out groups and kind of focus a little bit to produce honey and stuff like that. So this is just kind of a fun puzzly game that we really enjoy. The theme, I think bees and kind of nature and stuff, it's just a very appealing theme to us anyway. And so Queenz is just a really fun one that we think is kind of underrated and people should give it a check out. So that's number 8, Queenz, to be or not to be.
Number 7 is also a brew trait. It's Raptor. Raptor was more well-known than Naga, which I talked about in my last one, number 9, and it's also a 2-player game. Wow, 2-player game, brew trait, interesting. But nonetheless, Raptor is a really cool game that feels very unlike anything else. It's a 2-player game where one player is playing a bunch of scientists who are trying to capture a bunch of little baby raptors to do research on them, and the other player is playing as the raptors, is mostly playing as the big mama raptor who's trying to basically kill all the scientists because they're stealing her babies and she doesn't like that. And this game is very, very asymmetrical. You're doing totally different things. You're playing out these cards and the cards will allow you to do different stuff, like the scientists can like tranquilize the mother or the babies. They can like pick them up and try to run away with them. They can move trucks around. They can start fires to try to like burn down. The scientists are really the bad guys in this game. Try to like close in the mama raptor, and the mama raptor can go around, can wake up her babies if they've been tranquilized. She can eat people. She can smack the fire with her tail and put it out. It's very, very different. So each player plays out cards simultaneously. That's kind of the whole basis of how you do things. And the cards are labeled 1 through 8 or 9. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But nonetheless, whoever plays the lower of the 2 cards gets to do that card's action, which is a whole bunch of different stuff depending on the player, and they're all really cool and specific to them. But then the other player gets action points equal to the difference between the 2 cards. And the action points are allows them to move around, do all this stuff, eat people, all these different things. And so it's one of those things where if you're playing a 1, you really don't want someone to play like a 7 or 8 because they're gonna get a ton of action points. And so it's this constant like, what do I think my opponent's gonna do? What do I think my opponent's gonna do? And you have to try and get in their head. And it's a really, really tough game and it's really, really fun. And man, but if you're playing as the Raptors, you take it really personally when they steal one of your babies. And I get like really upset when I'm playing the Raptor. And so I can't play this game very often because I get like legitimately emotionally involved and I get real bummed out if I lose. And so Raptor is really cool, really unique game. Check it out.
So number 6 is a classic, very, very well-loved game. This is 7 Wonders Duel, which Bruno Cathala was one of the designers on. Obviously, this is a fantastic game that is based off of 7 Wonders. There's now 7 Wonders Architects, which is also fantastic. This is a 2-player version of based on 7 Wonders, where you are drafting out cards from a card pyramid that are going to give you, in the early eras, there's 3 eras, production of stone and brick and wood, and then you start using kind of your economy, I'll say, or your ability to produce your resources to buy and build other cards, working on Wonders of the World. It's that classic kind of game of working up civilization and stuff. Instead of drafting cards around, you're sort of, we always talk about it, sort of a card denial game, because as you uncover cards, more things become available. So I want to try to be in control over what cards my opponent has to take or has to ditch for money, and then make sure I keep all of the best options for myself. So it really is kind of tactical, being that it's a 2-player heads-up game now. And it's one that I really enjoy over like a 7 Wonders. In particular, for me, I'd love to play 7 Wonders Duel or 7 Wonders Architect. So the 2-player experience, I always love 2-player games, and that's why it's on our list from Bruno Cathala. Number 6, 7 Wonders Duel.
Number 5 is a game called Kanagawa. This game is about making a beautiful painting. You are an artist in a school for painting. You're doing these wonderful Japanese-inspired typed paintings. They're really, really beautiful. Really great art in Kanagawa as well. And you are essentially drafting cards in a kind of an interesting way. There is a central board. We're going to put out rows of cards. You'll put out one row, and then everyone kind of goes around, decides to either take a column or pass. Now, right now, there's only one card in that column, so a lot of times you end up passing. And then what will happen is if once everyone is done passing or taking cards, you then fill out the second row. And then again, you can take a column. So now there's more cards. The thing is you're trying to collect sets in this game. You're trying to collect painting pieces with different trees on them or buildings or people. You get certain diplomas for having like 3 trees or 4 trees in your kind of big panorama painting. So you're trying to get the right cards. And so it's a big, tough choice of like, ooh, I really need that card. Do I take it now and only get one card, or do I pass and hope no one else takes it and wait for more cards to come out? It's a really tough choice to make. And then when you get those cards, you can either add them to your panorama as a painting, or on the other side of them, you can flip them upside down and use it as a skill. And those skills will allow you to paint different types of paintings, be able to move around your brushes more, do a whole bunch of different things. So there's also some dual use stuff going on there. Very Bruno Cathala, as you can understand. But it's a really, really fun game that I feel like, I was gonna say it's underrated. Maybe it's not. I guess it's not a new game anymore, but it's a really fun game with really beautiful art. And I just really love art, painting, all that kind of stuff as a theme. I just think it's an underused theme in general, and I would love to see more. But Kanagawa is a really good one, and it's a Bruno Cathala game. So yeah, it's great.
So number 4 is Kingdomino Origins, and really you could say Kingdomino Duel, Queendomino, but Kingdomino Origins is the newest one that kind of spans the weight range from Kingdomino to Queendomino, and that's why it makes our list. This is a fantastic game that's very approachable. You can teach it very quickly to people, where you have all of these dominoes, these kind of 2 half tiles. They're gonna show different types of land, and you need to build out a kingdom, or a chiefdom or whatever, because now we're in the Stone Age, using these tiles. And the rule is that when you place a domino, you have to have at least 1 half of that domino has to match something else that you've placed before. You have your kind of central tile, which is a wild, so you can always place against that. And you're trying to build these large groups of land types, and then you hope to have the ability to score, there's kind of score multipliers. In this case, you have fire because it's providing comfort for you, because it's a Stone Age. Fire is a very important part of the kind of birth of civilization. And so you want to have a large land type with as many of those fire symbols, either tokens from volcanoes or printed on fire symbols, the comfort symbols, and acts as a multiplier. The bigger the area, the more tokens, the better. Kingdomino Origins is a great thing where it has different modes of play, so you can play just kind of the focus on the placing tiles, or it starts giving you resources that are produced from those tiles that you can then collect for set collection in the second version of the game, or in the final version of the game. You can start spending those resources to buy kind of tile manipulators that give you other options for scoring. So this is a great game that can kind of grow as you grow as a player, or if you're playing with family, you can kind of choose different modes that are going to fit the weight level of the group of players you have. So that's why we really enjoy it. Kingdomino Origins goes down smooth every time, and that's why it's on our list.
Number 3 is another Bruno Cathala game with great art, and that is Histrio. Histrio is one of our biggest evangelism games. We talk about Histrio all the time, and I feel like no one else does. We personally have gotten a lot of people to buy this game, for better or for worse. But this is a game by Bruno Cathala with really beautiful art. But in this game, you are a bunch of anthropomorphized animals, and you are trying to put on a play for the king. The problem is the king's mood is constantly switching. The king either wants a comedy or they want a tragedy. And there's a simultaneous selection aspect to this game because there's a whole bunch of different cities. There's like 8 cities in the game that you can essentially go to recruit more actors into your troupe. But the problem is if 2 people go to the same place, all those actors get discarded and the king's mood starts switching all over the place. It's really, really cool. It's a game also by the publisher Bombyx, and Bombyx tends to kind of overproduce their games, which we personally love. So the production of this game is absolutely beautiful with this big 3D stage that like switches when the king's mood switches. It's really, really cool. But this game is a pretty light game ultimately because it's just simultaneous selection. You're basically just trying to get actors that match what the king's mood is. So the king wants a tragedy, you want to get a bunch of tragedians. If they want a comedy, you want to get a bunch of comedians. But at the same time, you can also affect the king's mood. So halfway through the round, the king might switch their mood. Also, you have all these comedians and the king wants to see a tragedy. You're like, oh, so you're trying to switch it back over to comedy. It's a really, really cool, fun game that we just will never stop talking about because we love it. That's Histrio.
So our number 2 is 5 Tribes. This is a fantastic Mancala style game that's super puzzling, can kind of break your brain in a good way, where you're gonna have kind of a tableau of tiles out in front of you and then different color workers all over the board. And so the rule is what you do is on a turn, you pick up one group from one tile and then you drop off one worker along the way on each tile, kind of choosing directions, and you'll land on a different space. And then the last worker you place down has to match one color on that final space. You'll pick up all the workers of that color, and then based on the color of worker you picked up, you will trigger various different things. You can get immediate points, you can buy cards from a market, all sorts of different stuff, and then you also get to activate that tile. So there's kind of like this 3-dimension way of thinking of like the color of the worker matters, the tile I'm going to matters, they all kind of do different things. They give you different paths to victory, and you're trying to put kind of influence out on the board as you empty out tiles. You get to control that space, which is worth points. This is kind of point salad. There's points everywhere, which does lead to a lot of AP because you're thinking through the puzzle of like, how do I actually get to that space with these workers? What color do I need to have when I get there? Which color do I want to have if I have multiple options? And on and on and on. But I think that makes it so fun to kind of crunch on. This for a Bruno Cathala game seems heavier. It's on the heavy side of a Bruno Cathala type game. And that's one I really like if I want to crunch on a puzzly type game. There's just not many games that do what 5 Tribes does, also 7 Wonders Duel, what 5 Tribes does, and that's why I really kind of keep coming back to it. There's different expansions which change things, give you different color workers and stuff. And it's just one that I really love the puzzle and the way it looks on the table, and that's why it's our number 2.
And number 1, our favorite Bruno Cathala game is Abyss. We absolutely adore Abyss. It was like 5 Tribes Abyss, 5 Tribes Abyss. We decided to go with Abyss today. Abyss is wonderful. It's also by Bombyx, which was Histrio, was my last thing I talked about. And the production of this game is absolutely incredible. The art in this game is absolutely incredible. It's such a beautiful game. But this takes place in the Abyss, underneath the water, and there's this whole big political system with all these different factions. There's like the farmer faction, and there's like the military, the crab faction, and the squid faction, which are like mages. And essentially you're gathering, it's weird because it's like this big underwater world, but it's like a politics game in terms of you're trying to collect these sets of factions. You're trying to collect a bunch of the squid faction, or a bunch of the seahorse faction, or a bunch of the crab faction, and you're using those to then essentially buy the influence of these different lords. And these lords will give you special powers. They'll give you keys, which give you access and influence over specific locations. And it's a really, really great game, especially when you add in the Leviathan expansion. This is a game that's really wonderful, but is kind of feels incomplete. But when you add the Leviathan expansion, it really completes that game. It just makes it absolutely outstanding. I think one of the problems with Abyss is because of the production and all the art and kind of all the stuff on there, it looks like it's gonna be a much bigger game than it is, but it's actually pretty darn light, which I really like about it. It's a pretty like Gateway Plus game, which is kind of Bruno Cathala's wheelhouse. And this one is one of the best ones out there. We really, really love this as like a, hey, this is your next step kind of game. You played some games, some gateway games, let's move up to this because it's very accessible. And it's just, I mean, the production, it's like, how are you gonna beat that art? It's so darn good. And it's Bruno Cathala's best game in our opinion, at least for today. We love Abyss so much, especially with the Leviathan expansion. So that was our top 10 games of Bruno Cathala. We want to look around and see some more designers we can do this for. Yes. They have to be relatively prolific and we have to have played their games, of course. Right.
Uwe, we really like this idea. At you.
Uwe is definitely a possibility, indeed. Okay. But yeah, we really like these kinds of lists. And Bruno Cathala, again, is just like a very nice man in real life. We've met him before. He's so awesome and great. Awesome. And just can really make a game.
Yep. That's what,
just make a game.
Yeah, if there's a designer that you like enough that you think you can make your own top 10 list of, let us know in the comments below. Who's like the most prolific designer to you, or the one that you have the most stuff from?
Yeah, exactly.
We'd love to hear that. Until next time, I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We'll see you in the next top 10.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.